Okay, wonderful. Welcome everybody to the last day of May. We are walking through the milestone process. I pre-recorded, I'm sorry it took me so long last week, but I pre-recorded a short walkthrough of expectations for the milestone process, mostly focused on what I'm doing and how that will affect you. So wanted to give you the expectation of what I do throughout the milestone, before the milestone, leading up to it, in the milestone, and so forth. And then I documented some of that in the agenda as well. And then I thought that we could use this time for just questions and any suggestions for doing things differently, or anything else. So why don't we go ahead and jump over to the agenda? Let me link it real quick in the. There we go. I'm going to drop the agenda link just in case you don't have it in the Zoom chat. Okay. So the first question, or second question here, Nicholas is just letting us know that he'll be slightly late. Alina, you've got the first question. Do you want to vocalize?
Yes, sure. So thank you for putting together the video. It's been very helpful for me. I wanted to mention that there is some work which I feel maybe it's not visible enough, and I wanted to mention this here. Is that around the metrics update, those issues are assigned for each group, but it happens that maybe I'm just feeling responsible for those issues, but I'm going back and try to help everyone move forward. So I sometimes open the issues or generate a dictionary and make some commits and some work there to help move everything faster. So this is not really visible because the issues are not standing in my name, but they are in PM's names or other developers sometimes. And I wanted to ask how to make this visible for you.
Yeah, Nicholas, do you want to voice your comment?
Sure. So I think that the two issues, right? So we have the visibility and the planning, and the planning is something we could maybe do with, like, you create an issue and assign it a weight, let's say 5 or like 4, doesn't matter. And what you think it will like be, like you will spend your time on, and then we have it accordingly planned for the next milestone, and it removes weight from your shoulders. And the other thing is the visibility that could maybe be in the issue or in the weekly status update of the milestone planning issue. Would that work?
Yeah, sure. I think that for me, well, however you prefer, I can adapt.
Yeah, I think, in my opinion, this one is a little non-standard, right? Because you have dozens of issues for these PMs where they are individually working their issues, and you might touch half of them and do some work on them. I would not suggest creating an issue for everyone you touch. Just create one issue for the milestone that's your, dedicated time working on that project. And then start it off with, if you think it's maybe 5 points or whatever you're estimating. But as you go through the milestone, if you find that you actually use more time than you expected, feel free to increase it. Or at the end of the milestone, if you really didn't use all 5 points and it ended up being more like 2 points worth of your time, reduce it. And what that's going to do is it's just going to help us to start predicting velocity and capacity based on the time everybody has spent. So we don't want it to become too much of an administrative project for you. We don't want you spending time making issues, but it'll just help us to track how you're doing things. I did mention, I'm sorry, number 3, Alina, you had a question about the weekly async updates. Oh, I'm sorry, Mikola, do you want to voice before we move on to number 3?
Yeah, just this question about some non-documented or not documented with the issue work reminded me of, I think I can vocalize for myself and for Alper, that being a maintainer, either of backend or frontend or whatever, it also requires quite a lot of capacity that is spent on the reviews and mentoring others. And I was just simply curious if we should account for that, or this is somehow implied that if someone is maintainer, then we simply just reduce the velocity, which would be, or velocity to be expected from him if he would not be doing the maintainer work. while planning, because I know accounted for that anywhere, but this is something that kind of relates to this topic, and I wanted to vocalize it.
Nicholas, do you want to voice your response?
Yeah, so this is, since we have a good data already with the weight that you can all tackle, this is already accounted for in the weight that we have. Like we make the average of the last 3 milestones, and in these 3 milestones, you also reviewed as a maintainer. So there is no, I don't think like it's accounted, it's already accounted for in that case. So I wouldn't make the separate issue, because everyone has to do that, and that's an engineering. I know it's like 20-30% of your time that goes into reviews. So like it could be easily that if you're a maintainer or a trainee, so that's fine.
Nicholas, can I clarify the issue that's being reviewed essentially? If it's a weight of 5, are you saying that that weight should encompass the reviews as well? Is that right?
This was about like if Mikolai does like a lot of review work as a maintainer, like how can we account for that in the milestone planning? I think this was the question, right?
Yeah, but what I'm wondering is where, I think I understand you're saying that it's accounted by the weight of the previous, I'm not following how it's accounted.
Oh, so yeah, let's say in the previous milestones, we get an average of like 50 weights that we can complete as a team.
Yeah.
In this time, everyone also reviewed code. So if the code reviews would go away, we would probably get more into the milestone, but it's already like accounted for that, because we have like less review, like less weight that we can tackle because we already do reviews. Like this is
understood.
Averaged out, yeah.
It's encompassed in the say-do ratio. We're say we can basically accomplish about 50 points, and that includes all the reviews we have to do. Okay, exactly. That makes sense to me.
It averages out in the 3 milestones, and if we see that this is not like feasible, we can change, but usually this works out well.
Okay, perfect. One thing that I wanted to add, and it's not directly related, but it got me thinking when I was originally going down the wrong path, is weights should also encompass things like documentation, right? Documentation, what else should we be doing? Testing, right? That kind of thing. So we shouldn't be creating separate issues. When we have an issue, we shouldn't create separate issues for all the additional things that are related to it, unless it's separate iterations. So if one iteration requires a docs update, requires some kind of special testing, that sort of thing, that should all be part of that weight. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page there. Okay, so Alina, you have number 3.
Yes, you mentioned about the weekly async update for each issue. I was wondering if you would like us to mention you and create a to-do for you, or it's not necessary to not spam you.
Nicholas, do you want to voice your response?
Yeah, so my idea was like to have this milestone issue where we all post the weekly updates. I know that Amanda has a different opinion about that, and I'm fine if what we want to do. Regarding the mentioning, I don't mind to be mentioned. That's up to you as well, Amanda.
Yeah, in my opinion, you could just post the update. You don't, for me personally, you don't need to mention me. I'm always watching these things anyway. So you don't need to mention me. I would highly recommend that we put the async update on the issue itself, because there are many viewers of the content that won't be looking at our planning issue. What I found in the past works very nice is you giving the update on the issue, and then the engineering manager on the planning issue just giving a weekly update of any highlights or blockers. And the planning issue summary is mostly for us and to keep track of things. And at the end, we can look at those summaries to see how can we adjust for the next planning meeting or the next planning cycle. Whereas the async updates on the issue isn't as much of learnings, but as status, so people don't have to ping you and ask and disrupt your work cycle. Awesome. Okay, number 4, Rajenda.
Yes. So yeah, when I started back like 90 days before, there were two or three people working on Snowplow and 2 or 3 people working on usage ping. So I started off with usage ping, and then I had few one-on-ones with Jerome, and then we decided to shift like my focus on Snowplow tooling. So with this planning issue, how would it work? Whether we still have that separation, or anyone is free to pick up the prior issues as per the priorities on the board?
Yeah, so from a planning perspective, moving forward, we're going to ask that you don't self-select. I'm going to be putting issues in the milestones. They're going to be prioritized, and we want you to work from the board that way. If the next issue in the board is something that you're not familiar with and you don't feel comfortable with, it's okay to skip it, move to the next one. But ideally, we get to a point where anybody can work on anything. And how we get there, I defer to Nicholas, but that's the ultimate goal from a product perspective. So, Nicholas?
Yeah, I know like Jerome had to split in team with like Snowplow and usage ping. I just believe that everyone should like be able to work on all the things, because it's the same area. And also know that there's a different term that we want to use at GitLab, but it also reduces the buzz factor a bit, and it's helps you all, I think, to have like this combined approach. So if you don't mind, I'm fine like that everyone can work either on usage ping or Snowplow, whatever works for them in this milestone. And there's also a good shared knowledge. Regarding like picking up the issues, I think that's like first come, first serve a bit, like with talking to each other. Well, sometimes you have a preference, that's totally fine. And often, interestingly, it's like someone has a preference and the other doesn't want to do the work. So it's a good match often.
Yeah, I think that's the right approach. Personally, I like to just juggle between two tools. If I get bored with working on some issue and then I just need a change, I might pick up something from the usage thing. So yeah, it also helps to build the context around and what's going on in the current time.
I wonder if it makes sense. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I was just moving on to the fifth point. You were saying?
Yeah, I wonder if it would make sense to make some kind of pseudo onboarding issues for the folks who have a single specialization, where we can create a list of resources and steps to learn the different tool, so that they can, and we're getting to the next question, but in downtime, they can work on burning down that kind of learning issue. Does that make sense, Nicholas? Kind of like an onboarding to Snowplow for the usage ping folks, and an onboarding to usage ping for the Snowplow folks.
Would the workshop like already like be like enough information for that? I'm not sure, like something the engineers need to answer.
I think we already have those two onboarding issues when someone new is onboarded. Like I remember doing a sample MR on integrating Snowplow and a sample MR on running a usage ping locally. So I think that's there. Like I know both of the tools and have worked on a few issues on both the tools.
Yes, we do have something. It was used for onboarding new team members. I'm not sure if that sits in the template or it was just a copy paste or copying issues or something, copying for every member.
We have the template on the product intelligence guide handbook page.
Yeah, that would be something that I would be happy to set aside time for as well in the milestones, right? The next few milestones, dedicating a certain amount of points to just cross-training or cross-learning as well. Okay, well, we can follow up with that, AC.
I've just one quick thought that maybe in terms of the issue, it would be more productive for us to focus more on providing robust documentation and not like the developer documentation that is aimed for the end users, because so far we're mostly focusing on the documentation onto guiding how others can use the tools that we are providing, but prepare the documentation for our own selves. So using the domain experts for the usage ping and for the Snowplow we could add in the handbook page, not in the documentation page, so this is not mixed up and we don't confuse the our end users with the documentation that our team can cross-reference, because I think there is the biggest gap is like to understand what's going on in these tools, or even after completing this first onboarding issue, which were quite small, to getting the confidence that when doing, for example, the product intelligence reviews across domains. So when I was on the usage ping and I was asked to do snowplow review, I felt not comfortable because I wasn't sure if I'm not missing some important points. I know that some foundation was laid out by Alina, as far as I remember, when providing the guide how to do the product intelligence reviews, and I think we can expand on that, and that would be very productive way for us in the future for being able to cross work.
Yeah, I think that that's a really great point. I linked to something that the fulfillment team uses. They've created kind of an index in the customers.repo of specifically focused for development. You know, just when you onboard, how to set up customers all the way to this is the way we deprovision services. This is the way CI is calculated. This is what, you know, this kind of stuff. So it's not necessarily 100% customer focused. It's not, you know, it doesn't make sense, all of it for docs. We don't even have everything in Handbook. Some of it we link to Handbook, but having it in the repo has been really helpful for not only people just onboarding, but referring back after you sat on a project for a few months and you're coming back to it. So definitely recommend that. Nicholas?
Yeah, I agree. And we can do this. I think in the growth product intelligence project, this would work well. We shouldn't do this like add this to the documentation. Just I think the infrastructure team has something similar as far as I can remember. So yeah, absolutely.
And I think it can happen organically. I think as soon as you touch something that can be documented, throw it in there, and we can organize and modify later, but just start somewhere. Great. Okay, number 5.
Yes. So yeah, I had this question: if some engineer has worked, verified, deployed through staging and production, there the MRs that they have been working on and have closed the issues. So how does it work if there are no issues unassigned in the milestone and everyone is working on something? So how does it work? Can I pick an issue from the next milestone or some tech debt from the backlog that is burning and would help us make more efficient if fixed? Or is there something else to be followed in such cases?
Yeah, so if you look at the high level milestone process all the way at the beginning of the agenda, number 2B1I, when I'm planning, first of all, we're attempting to plan ambitiously, which means I should have more content in the milestone than you can deliver. That if we're doing things optimally, we should be carrying things over because we should be planning ambitiously. At the onset, I'm not sure that we're going to plan too ambitiously, but of what I've planned, I'm looking for at least 70% of that work to be deliverable. Meaning if we don't get to all 100%, that's okay because we're planning ambitiously. I'm looking for 70% of that to be delivered, 10% being tech debt, and 20% being kind of miscellaneous. And this is kind of when we're getting into the miscellaneous, I think. When we've gotten through everything, all of the options you provided are valid. I've listed here in response in order of what I would prefer, but it's completely up to you. I would first prefer for you to go out to Slack and say, hey, can I help anybody close something out? Because that helps us towards the deliverables of the milestone, right? Get those closed quicker. Plus that might help you with some cross training kind of thing. But then pick from the next milestone. And in the case where you're picking from the next milestone, I don't even care what order you pick from. Pick the one you want, right? Because I don't even have that on my radar until the next milestone. Pick something from the backlog, create or work on tech debt. Maybe it's created already or is something we've been thinking about, create a new issue, work on a passion project, or do something else, do learning, research, create documentation. Any of those things are valid. As long as everything's picked in the milestone, it's up to you. Anything to add there, Nicholas?
Nope, nothing. Thanks for explaining.
Great. Number 6.
It was just quick grasp because the walkthrough video, I really love it. And I fully support what Alina said at the beginning. Thank you for doing so. And I just thought that it would be nice to have it added to the handbook page so everyone can circle back to it when it's needed.
Yes, absolutely. I will. And also, once we have agreed, if we want to take what I've laid out here as the process we're starting with, I will also add documentation to the handbook with the link as well. Number 7, Nicholas?
Yeah, so I think there's still a few that use the status hero updates every day. I personally never liked it as an engineer, so I would be fine if we drop that, but because we have the weekly status issue, and it's much easier to scan these issues, and also, yeah, let me know, Amanda, what you think, and if you want to reuse them.
I was just looking at your version of this. It looks like it's just what is the format? It's what you're doing today and activities. So the reason why I like the daily status updates, what I'm looking for when I'm in the fulfillment version of this is blockers. They'll mention what's blocking them, and then I'll go and chase that down and try and help. And we just started making it a little social. There's a question about what are you thinking about today? And that allows for engagement. Those are the only 2 things that sometimes they'll also indicate what they're working on today, and I might look at those issues. I'll defer to you and the team on this because I want you to be efficient and not spending time on just documenting everything. I would say if you have a blocker, definitely mention it somewhere so that I could see it and try and help.
Yeah, I fully agree. Like I trust everyone to do their work well, but I also trust everyone to like raise a concern if there's a blocking, like something blocking them. So that's what we shouldn't try to like cover by a process of this. I, however, also agree that I would love to like hear what everyone is doing. So if this is just a social question every day, that would be fine for me. But I will take this with the team and then we can discuss.
Number 8.
And the last one is so we just briefly talked about like how to pick issues, and I came from like a team of 2 where everyone like just like easily like pick one of the issues. I just want to prevent like a bystander effect, that like there's a list of issues and like you don't pick anything because you don't know like if you are allowed to or you want to. Do we want to try this? Like, what is your preference there?
Are you asking me or the team?
Or like the team, like, do you want to try to just everyone picks what they want to, and like as soon as someone is assigned to something, we know that they work on it? Or do you want to have some formal process where we like, yeah, where we play like poker and everyone can pick something?
So for me, I would like to try this. I think that here at GitLab, I didn't have the chance to work on this because we were usually a smaller group and we were like pointing, I'm going to work on this and you this. And that was mainly how we organized until now. I would like to give it a try if we decide to as a group. And everyone would like that. I know that this we had this specialization and split in the 2 groups, and this might be, at least for me, I'm speaking for myself, that might be a bit harder for me to go and take some snowplow work that is not very clear, but I would like to try that too. So just try to learn more about that area. So this is just speaking for me. Yeah.
Just to follow that thread, I would say that I've noticed on issues and epics in this team, the information is very sparse. There's usually like 1 sentence. And I think that that's just been a product of the fact that whoever made it typically follows it through and finishes it. I think now it's especially important to be as thorough as possible with the requirements, the desire, what's the problem, the goal, because we're going to have people picking things up in an area that isn't their specialty. And so help them out, and me, with more details if we can. Luis?
Yes, I like picking the issues as long as we can we have clear priorities of what's next, or what should I pick next, because sometimes I'm not sure if I should pick a 2 points issue or a 5 one. So Alina have helped me a lot with that, like prioritizing, and I really appreciate it. But so I like picking it as well.
Okay. Nicholas, do you want to verbalize?
Yeah, just like I believe with 14.1, we will have this covered to know what is the priority of what, because you will plan the milestone ahead, and I have a lot of like trust in you that this will be great. So yeah, I think this will work out then.
Great. Okay, we're at time. One final question. Anything that you've heard that you'd like to change? Or shall we make this our starting process and modify as we go? I would like to have in our retro every milestone talk about process as well. What can we hone? What can we change? But as of right now, any requests for change? All right, well, we'll start here and we'll modify as we go. Inputs are very important to the process to make sure things are as optimal as possible. So do speak up, and do ask questions. Don't be afraid to ping me with any kind of questions, either on Slack, in an issue, wherever you want. Yeah, Nicholas, did you have one last?
Just thanks that you put this all together.
Absolutely. Thank you all. I will drop the recording in the agenda doc and also post it in the Slack channel for those who couldn't attend. Thanks so much and have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Bye.